Good morning, students. I would like to continue with the previous lecture on contextualizing the policy initiatives in the Indian energy sector. In the previous class, I tried to stop in explaining the context of 2008 with reference to climate change and resources scarcity. Okay. What are the implications of this particular the context is that we will be like coming to the present from 2008 to the 2020. In which context we are? Okay. For instance, today we are discussing on, for instance, the energy inequality and as well as energy stratified society. There are a lot of discussion which is also happening in within the energy sector in terms of an economic loss. Okay. On the other hand, we are also trying to understand, for instance, what is the problem with the development of rural economy? What is the inherent problem with the rural economy or the collapse of the rural economy? The rural economy itself, and you will be able to see this reflections in terms of migration. People try to move from, for instance, the rural areas to the urban in search of better employment opportunities. Better employment opportunities. But in the context of the COVID-19, you will be able to see that the clear-cut reflections of the reversal migration which is happening. For instance, a lot of migrant laborers actually who have moved from the village to the urban areas in search of better employment opportunities. Now they are moving back once again to the villages. This exactly explains the collapse of the rural economy in India. Okay. On the other hand, you will also be able to see that repercussions in emergence of various movements. This connected to the very idea of the collapse of the rural economy. At the same time, the migrations. You see the movements in terms of environmental as well as farmers and peasant movements in India. Farmer, peasant and the tribal movements in India. So if you would like to reflect on this is what the position is right now. Okay, if you would like to reflect on this, the present context of moving from the 2008 to 2020. Okay, this is all now the reality of today's India. These are all the social realities of today's India. So we want to know the reasons. We want to know the reasons for this, some of the happening or some of the problems which we are incurring right now, which we are facing it right now. Okay, we are going back. We are going back from from the 2020 to the context of the independence, or you can say that 1950s. What kind of a developmental debates which happened during that period of a time, because of which we are incurring or we are witnessing these kind of problems at present. Okay, so now we are going to look at something which is these problems, something which is a kind of an historical answer. We are going to search kind of an historical answers. Okay, so this exactly deals with the relations of more kind of an interrelated relations. We are trying to look at it in terms of the development, energy, and the science questions together. So in the process, we are trying to understand how these policies have evolved over a period of time. these policies evolved over a period of time. So this is something which is we have to understand. Okay, after going back to the history, and once again slowly we will be coming back once again to this same problem, or once again to this same phenomena which is happening right now. Okay, now let's go back to the history. History of 1950, or the context of political liberation. Okay. During this particular phase, in the 1950s and all, many countries have become independent. Number one. The emergence of new independent nations have come. At the same time, there is also kind of the end of World War II is also witnessed during this particular phase. That's on 1945 onwards. Okay. There are certain realizations which happened during this particular period. The three set of realizations one need to understand. The first set of a realization is that trying to focus on trying to focus on what is the loss which we have witnessed out of the war. The loss in terms of what? Okay. They try to realize that the loss is very, very enormous, very, very huge in terms of economic loss, at the same time material and the human losses, very high in nature. So this loss should not recur once again in the history of human progress. That was kind of a clear-cut vision that has emerged by the end of the World War II. At the same time, there is also the realizations which happen on what is the science is all about. What is this? Science is all about. Is the science is a means or kind of an instrumental for mass destruction? This was the question which has been asked at the end of the World War II. Is it the science as an instrument of mass destruction, or the science as an instrument of an emancipation? Or a kind of an uplifting the society. So it is also kind of the means for the development. So what happened was that by the realization of the first one has to reduce the number of losses, minimize the losses in terms of economic, material, and human, in terms of the war, keep the war away, and at the same time try to bring a kind of a consciousness of a science. The science has certain social responsibilities. It has to meet the demands of the society, and by trying to look at these 2 points, what happened was the third point was the realization of the development. What kind of a path which we are supposed to take so that the development would be very peaceful in nature. So the development in terms of uplifting the society by the means of a science. So the upliftment which helps the social and economic development basically. Okay. So this kind of a realization, this kind of a consciousness which went across the globe. Okay. At the same time, the newly independent nation were aspired with the very idea of development, that aspirations to become the newly independent states, aspiration to become a kind of a developed nation. So that is moving from a kind of trying to realize that what is that real position of the newly independent state. That means the state of under development to the state or the position of the developed nation. So the major goal is to address the inferior position inferiority in terms of economic, at the same time social, the third technology and education. And India wants to play a kind of a major role in the global politics. This is all something which guided the aspiration or the vision of the development during 1950s onwards. This vision is not something a kind of one person's vision. Okay, it is said to be a kind of millions vision during that point of time. However, there were a kind of debates. There were a kind of debates which happened during this particular phase that try to shape the trajectory of the development in India. I'm going to clearly narrate that the debate which happened or the debate which shaped the trajectory of the development, which shaped the trajectory of the science and as well as the energy in India. These debates is between the two different groups, or kind of one can say that it's kind of a debate which happened within the political context, at the same time the debate which also happened within the scientific community. So the first level of the debate is on selecting the parts of development. The first one is about selecting the parts of development that's between new versus coming. The second one was on the doing science and scientific practices. The second debate, it is between S.S. Butler versus Magnat Saha. The third was the selection of the energy. Energy, technologies and science. This is between Homi Bhabha versus G.D. Kosami. Okay. These three debates were central during that particular point of time. This is always something which didn't happen between two different individuals, but it's kind of an ideological debate which happened during that period of time. So the ideological debate here is that it deals with a set of assumptions. That help to explain the nature of economic, social and political goals of a country. This is what you will be able to infer or derive from this debate. Okay, so now I'll be able to explain very clearly what kind of a debate which happened, discussion which happened between the Nehru and Gandhi. At the same time, there is Bhatnagar and Saha in developing the scientific institutions as well as the science in India. At the same time, with the Baba versus D.D. Kosami on the selection of the energy technologies, that's between the nuclear energy versus the solar. Okay, or I'll put it a kind of a renewable energy versus the nuclear energy. The first discussion was between the selection of the path of development. That's between Nehru versus so this is I'll be like able to explain you very simple terms. I'm not going to complicate this. Okay, the first idea of I'll be able to explain the ideas between the Nehru and Gandhi in three different aspects. The first aspect is about that deals with the model of a centralization was the decentralization. Nehru always preferred a kind of a centralized approach to develop India, that is something which is top-down in nature. What is the notion of the top-down is that here the experts, the experts from different groups actually, they'll be able to take decisions, the policy decisions as well as the policy as well as the bureaucratic decisions on behalf of the population. Okay, something which is a kind of a hierarchical in nature. At the same time, if you look at the Gandhi's idea is that the Gandhi's idea is about a more kind of a decentralized approach. He tried to prefer the decentralized approach to development. That means that's he wants to like implement the bottom-up approach to the development. This is highly a kind of a non-hierarchical in nature. Non-hierarchical and more kind of an interactive parts of development. So here, what is the notion? Implied notion is that when you follow the kind of a bottom-up approach, here the people or kind of the population or the people of the nation suggest the experts what is required for the development. What is required for the development? That means you understand the problem of the nation state, and by understanding the problem of the nation state, experts are supposed to implement the policy or develop the policy as well as implement the policy to address the particular problem. So this was the very idea behind the decentralized approach. The second one was trying to facilitate, always like trying to facilitate the very idea of modernization. The idea of modernization. What does this modernization means? Modernization in terms of what? Number one is that he always tried to prefer or facilitate or foster the industrial development. Idea of industrial development, which is followed by heavy investments in technologies. Advanced technologies. These advanced technologies are, the third point is that, highly a resources intensive economy. Resources intensive economy. Basically, the very idea of this economic modernization is that this economic modernization rests with a logic of inherent logic of highly capital intensive, in nature. Okay, at the same time, when this become a kind of a highly capital intensive in nature, this try to keep the idea of, they try to keep the notion of the, for instance, the nature culture interactions. Okay, the third was trying to develop, for instance, how to develop a kind of the industrial, how to look at how to foster the idea of industrial development is that develop the macroeconomic institutions. This macroeconomic institutions, which is purely on state-managed PSUs, public sector units, that's purely rest on the socialist policies. Our policies were socialist in nature, but the implementations were highly modernized, or highly trying to look in terms of modernization, okay, application of the different facets of modernizations. On the other hand, if you look at it, the Gandhi foregrounded the critic of modernization. The very fundamental idea of the critic of the modernization is that try to facilitate a small scale and the cottage industries. At the same time, it should not be a kind of a technology intensive production, it should be manpower intensive production. When we use the manpower intensive production, and we are also less focusing on less intensive resources oriented production process. Less intensive oriented or less intensive resources oriented production process, that means which gives a certain room for the understanding of environment within the production system. According to Gandhi, is that the very kind of the fundamental of this particular production process is unsustainable in nature. Unsustainable and create a massive destruction. During the process of development, which is supposed to be stopped. Okay. On the other hand, he also try to foreground or try to facilitate the micro economic institution. This microeconomic institutions, which is purely based on village or the community as the center of development, rather than big macroeconomic organizations which controls the economy, rather than the village as a kind of or the community as the center of development. That means giving preferences to the agrarian rural and the agrarian economics. So when you foster the agrarian economy, for instance, during that period of a time, we had a kind of a lot of people majority of them, 90 to 95% were living in rural areas. So when you foster that, the development which is based on the villages, which would provide employment opportunities, and at the same time it also stops the migration process towards people coming towards a kind of an urban areas. So the development becomes a kind of an highly uneven in nature. But this, the very idea of the, for instance, the Nehruvian model, which fostered the industrial and urban development, which also like facilitated, pulled the people towards urban centers. Okay, this was a kind of the broader idea. This was a kind of a broader, two different views on how the development is supposed to happen in the post-independent context. But ultimately, what happened was that it's the Nehruvian idea got implemented over the period of a time because of the political power. So during the phase, during for instance the last 50 to 70 years period of a time, whatever the critics which we are happening, whatever the critic which we are trying to foreground right now, all the critic which goes to the Nehruvian model of development. At the same time, it is also to be remembered that we cannot fully criticize whatever the problem which we are facing right now. We cannot criticize the Nehruvian model alone. There are many variables uncontrollable variables which played the role in the process of development. Okay, so during those period of time, for instance, 1973 context, okay, those activities and all, we didn't have any control over it. So we are only supposed to respond to the crisis. When we are responding to the crisis, that the consciousness of the situation is highly limited. Okay, so whatever the India tried to perceive it as a solutions to addressing the crisis, that's what we try to follow. So those uncontrollable variables also played the major role in shaping the trajectory of the science, energy as well as the development in Indian context. Okay, so the debate is that the next debate is between S.S. Bhatnagar as well as between Mangan Saha. It's on the role of the scientific institutions and science in India. Scientific practices. The first one was the very idea of what is the objective of the science? What is the objective of the science? What is the objective of the science in addressing the nation's problem? The very notion of the Bhatnagar is that he tried to foreground, or he tried to a kind of a clear vision for two different set of institutions. One is that what is the role of universities, and what is the role of, for instance, CSIR, okay, the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. So he clearly tried to visualize a kind of a vision is that the universities should focus on the pure science. That means they should explore the nature. What is the role of the university is that to explore, to do basic science. Explore the nature. But at the same time, for instance, what is the role of the CSIR is that its role is to look at the technology development for Indian industries. So their role is specifically supposed to be look at the development of the industrial science in India. When you create a kind of two different institutions for two different purposes. On the other hand, what is Saha's vision is that Saha's vision is on the objective of science towards the nation state is that his approach or his understanding is that he tried to visualize a kind of the science. What is the contribution of science towards the society is that to address the problems, the development problems of the society. To address the development problem of the society. He tried to foreground that Indian scientific community must try to identify different set of problems. Okay, by identifying the different set of problems, okay, you will be able to select the technologies that could address the needs of the development. That could address the needs of the development. This is very kind of the basic. So in the process, he also suggested that we are supposed to do a kind of more reverse engineering. That means study more number of technologies which are available, try to bring those technologies from outside and do a kind of reverse engineering. That reverse engineering could help to meet the developmental needs of India. But on the other hand, the idea of the objective of this, Bhatnagar's idea of objective of science towards the nation is very a kind of one hand it is very academic in nature, very a kind of an academic engagements on the one hand. At the same time, how this academic engagement is supposed to be. The academic engagement is supposed to address the nation-state problem, but he didn't differentiate. When you come to a kind of Saha's idea that he didn't differentiate. Okay, universities are supposed to do pure science, and the CSA are supposed to look at a kind of technology development that's for the industrial demands. So he didn't look at, rather he tried to look at what is the general objective of the science is that general objective of the science is to address the problems of the society. Okay, so select those technologies which could like approach or which could elevate the problems of development in India. So this is what a kind of clear objectives both they had. The second one was on the idea of the bureaucratization of science. Bureaucratization of the science. The bureaucratization of the science was that it is highly, one hand, the scientists are highly accountable to what they do as a kind of the scientific work. There should be a kind of a clear delegation of the work. Clear delegation of the work. And the work is supposed to be coordinated between each individuals within the institution. So something which is he tried to foreground the bureaucratization in terms of managerial approach to scientific work. At the same time, Saha was completely against this bureaucratization of the science by trying to claim that science as a kind of it's a free creation of the mind. Science is always a kind of a creative act. It is a free creation of the mind. Putting a lot of a kind of pressure on the scientist, which could stop this free thinking. So the scientific community will not able to create or will not able to think creatively when we put social pressure on them. So rather than putting the lot of social pressure on them, try to put a kind of develop the consciousness of the responsibility. So this very idea is that one should be accountable. that scientists are supposed to be accountable for the work they are trying to do. But rather, this idea is something which is moving beyond the accountability. They try to look at what is the responsibility of the scientist. When the responsibility of the scientist, then it becomes a kind of a voluntary act. Science becomes a voluntary act. Science becomes a kind of a kind of a free creation of the mind. At the same time, it becomes a creative act. When you put the social pressure, the scientific community will not be able to think beyond certain limits. So don't put a lot of pressure on them. That means trying to stop the very idea of bureaucratization of the science. That was his idea. The third idea is that the Bhatnagar believed that always before the technology development, there should be a science precedes the technology development. So, and then the technology development followed by the transfer of the technology, that is innovation. So, the Bhatnagar's idea was more on developing the science, moving towards technology, and then finally commercializing the technology. It is the linear model of the development which Bhatnagar tried to follow. But on the other hand, the Saha's one was much more radical in nature. During that point of time, he tried to consciously tell the community that don't differentiate what is science and technology. Rather, look at science and technology as a single knowledge system. So when you try to look at it as a kind of a single knowledge system, it becomes a kind of an continuum. Okay, in the continuum, what happens is that when you start at one end, you know what is supposed to be the other end of it. Okay, suppose what is the discovery? The discovery is to apply the knowledge of science for the benefit of the society. So we try to look at the science in terms of the single knowledge system. Okay, this is what a kind of a broader idea of how to develop the role of scientific institutions and scientific practices. So what is making us to learn? What is making us to learn this is that this kind of a debate which exactly shaped the trajectory of technology development in India. Technology development in India. For instance, what is the trajectory of the technology development in India? Now we are in the context of an entrepreneurial universities, whether it's a CSIR laboratory, whether it's an IIT, or whether it's a university, everywhere we are trying to say that the science should try to meet the societal demands. So you see that the science are supposed to meet the societal demand. This is something which is clearly discussed during 1950s itself, or during the period of our independence itself. Okay. On the other hand, we are also trying to describe that, for instance, the pure science. The question is that there are a lot of discussion which comes in terms of fundings. For instance, whether we get fundings for the basic science or for the applied science. These discussions used to happen. Okay, no, there are discussions which happen. No, the people who are writing applications for the applied science, they get the project fundings. Those who are writing proposals in basic science, they are not able to get any fundings at all. But if you look at as a kind of a single knowledge systems, okay, so this demarcations which clearly evade from it. Okay, these all are some of the debates which is happening, and these debates exactly shaped the technology developments in either in the energy sector. As a general, within the energy sector, it is conventional source or the non-conventional source. Whether it's a conventional or non-conventional source. These debates exactly try to shape or influence the technology development in energy sector. Okay, that's the reason that we are trying to explore. We are trying to explore the debates which happened during that particular point of a time. The next debate is on the next debate goes a bit of an Homi Baba versus Gigi Kosambi. Gigi Kosambi. Okay. Number one, is that it is basically it's between, for instance, whether it's nuclear or the solar, or put it another way, uranium or the sun. Uranium or the sun. Okay, so this is what basically the whomever was highly influenced by the geopolitical and economic situation that prevailed during that particular point of time. So what is the geopolitical is that every nation were running behind the nuclear race. The nuclear technology or the nuclear research is mainly for the purpose of the defense, followed by the civilian applications. So the civilian applications in terms of energy, as well as it also has other applications in health sectors. However, the defense overpower the civilian applications over the period of time. This civilian application is energy which could be used for the industrial development. And this is something highly resources and capital intensive in nature. Okay. On the other hand, the Kosambi's understanding was more a kind of an understanding the Indian society. His thinking were derived like a Gandhian actually, from the parts of thinking of the Gandhi. His idea was more from the understanding of what is the social realities of the Indian society. The social realities of the Indian society, try to visualize that the India's population, majority of the population which is locked into the village, at the same time agrarian in nature. So which technology could be the best technologies in terms of number one, cost. Number one, in terms of a cost. Number second, in terms of, for instance, applications, easy application. Number three, in terms of for instance, more kind of adopting the very idea of decentralization. Decentralization. At the same time, it is also to some extent what is cost, application, decentralization, and also trying to think within the notion of ecology and environment. By trying to consider all these aspects, okay, he tried to tell or foreground that the solar could be the best possible technologies to meet the energy demands of the future. However, this the very idea, the very thought of the Kosambi didn't take off, for instance, for almost 60 years, almost couldn't take off. It couldn't we couldn't implement the solar energy technologies effectively within the production process. Almost, I would say, till 2000. But after 2008 onwards, we have slowly increased the capacities of solar energy in India. Okay. On the other hand, this very idea also influenced the regulatory setup in energy sector. For instance, various departments have been emerged. Department of Atomic Energy. Department of Atomic Energy, which is emerged during that particular period of time. In this particular context, with reference to the renewable energy, in 1981, actually, 1981, during the period of 1981 to 1982, the Department of Non-Conventional Source of Energy, that's the first department which emerged after, for instance, almost 20 years after, almost a kind of 20 to 30 years after the department, the first department on renewable energy have emerged in Indian context. Okay, so this all some of the debates which happened during that period of time. Now I'm going to categorize this debate into two. Now I'm going to categorize this debate into two. One is Nehru, Bhatnagar, and then on the one hand, on the other hand, there is another set of a group, Gandhi, Saha, and then the third one is okay. These groups later try to influence the emergence of alternative development thinking later period of a time. At the same time, the appropriate and as well as various energy and environment movement. Energy as well as environment movement were inspired from these group of people. Okay. At the same time, these group of people were tried to mention as a kind of a mainstream culture of science and development. Mainstream culture of science and development. This mainstream culture of science and development is basically it's a representation. It's the representation of elite and the middle class aspiration. This is what the major almost all the sociologists try to criticize or try to look at this particular point. Okay, but